Mic check 1 2 1 2. Okay. Well, welcome. It has been a bit of a journey trying to get this thing going today. Oh, please excuse me. I do have a bit of an itch in my throat. Pause. That's been going on for a few days, but nonetheless, here I am. Uh, so yeah. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Do not get too comfortable with the tonality of my voice. It's on the verge. But yes, so we're here today. We've made it. We have made it again. So welcome. I'm your host, LaShonda Denise, and you have made it to Grace and Mercy, a podcast. Because what the Lord did with all my broken pieces was nothing but grace and mercy. Can I get an amen? I know somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. Right. Okay. So yeah, talking about what all just happened when I'm trying to get this recording started, of course. So this is just going to be an audio to start. I did record one previous video, which I will be uploading, and you'll see why when I upload it. But this will be, this part here will just be audio for today. And yeah, ice breaking still, but still moving forward, despite setbacks and just frustration. I just was sitting here like saying, Lord, I'm frustrated. And I kind of felt like he was saying, okay, so, and what does that mean? Doesn't mean that I can be disobedient. Doesn't mean that I can throw a hissy fit, but it doesn't give me, it doesn't help the process or anything except waste energy. So again, here I am. Name is LaShonda Denise, also formerly known as The Special. That was my little stage rap poet name. So that's why you will see me referring to at times You Are Enjoying Special. That was like my first production of my own. Well, yeah, it was basically my own production of the local television series. And I did one previously, but it was with someone else. And then this time I put out my own. So I'm gonna be reacting to that on my channel at some point, because I think it is very funny and just interesting to see the growth and also the interruption of development. Sorry, there was some more interruption of development right there. Yeah, it was just pretty quiet now. They were slamming doors, but at any rate, hopefully you guys aren't picking up on that. But yeah, and also interesting to see the interruption of development and the as the old band was named, Arrested Development. That I was, sorry, I keep losing track because I need to just stay locked in and don't lose focus, even though there's different things that are distracting right now, making it a curious case here. But yeah. So anyway, yeah, like I was saying, so that's where Special came from years ago, many millennia. Just kidding. But yeah, for the 99 and the 2000s, I guess you could say. But yeah, so we're here today. Like I said, still getting used to this whole thing, and I didn't really have a particular topic made out already. Even though I have plenty of them, plenty of topics and subjects that I would like to discuss. Today I just was gonna, freestyle. So that's where I'm at with that. It's to make some small talk. The weather has been the weather has been cooling down here in Texas, so I appreciate that very much as someone who came down here from the north. So I'm getting used to their heat, and I'm hoping that I don't lose my ability to, withstand the cold temperatures because, in Connecticut, we have all four of the seasons. Down here, it seems like there's only two seasons for real. It's like summer and a little bit less summer so far. So, excuse me. Yeah, but I'm grateful for it. I was wondering, when I moved down here and decided to move down here, I decided to move down here maybe like April, and I was down here by November. Crazy, right? Talk about look deep before you leap. I did not. I did come out here 3 times. It was just so strange and peculiar, kind of. I'm sure people do it every day, but for me, for someone who has a history of being more sedentary, like I move to a place and I like stay there for, a length of time. Outside of my first apartment, my first real apartment, I would say, my real first apartment, I stayed there for 10 years. And then the following one, I was there for like 6 years. And I spent I spent all of my life up until a couple of years ago when I moved down here. I spent all of my life in Connecticut, in the Northeast. Even wherever I moved, it was in the same kind of town. It was in the same town. And at one point I did move away from that town. That was kind of like my first kind of jump out of there. And I moved about 30 minutes away. I know it's like, what, girl? And you thought you ate. So to me, I felt like that took so much. I've got to be pushed, I think. Excuse me. I don't feel like, I don't want to say that, but I feel like as far as things making me say, all right, this is a no. I've got to go. And for me, what happened in that first case when I did my first leap, it wasn't that big of a leap, but it was a leap. What did happen was I just felt like I didn't want certain someone's to have access. I'm just keeping it very, have access like that because actually, although I'm like hesitant to how to to discuss it or, to talk about it, but because also, and it's hard to talk about in a sense that it's become so popularized over the years, and I can see why. Like the word we've heard of it quite often now, narcissism and narcissist, and we hear all of the tactics and excuse me. And I can remember when I had a therapist tell me that that's what she thought I was involved with. So I had one therapist tell me that, And I just kind of was like, girl, what? Because when I heard the word, I remember I just thought of the Greek, I think it's Greek mythology. I said, well, yeah, that does kind of sound, like a narcissist as the character. But I'm like, girl, listen, things are happening. It's really serious. I don't got time to play these games with your Greek mythologies, okay? I don't know. I don't think so. That was kind of like my thoughts towards it at the time, the first time. Then another one said it. A separate one said it that she, which it is kind of odd. I don't know if people really, I don't know if doctors really do that still, or because it seems pretty damning, I would say, to make that kind of diagnoses like that. At any rate, so that was the first time I heard it, and the second time. So the second time, she said, go home and research this, and then boom, 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 let me know what you think. Okay. So I go home, I research it, because I'm like, hey, at this point, when stuff isn't working, then you get a little bit more open-minded. It's like, well, maybe since this isn't working and that isn't working, maybe. So I go home, I research it, and I'm just like, lights and whistles and bells going off. I'm like, yeah, this is it right here. Definitely. And from that point, for years, and this lasted years, that's what the person was referred to. And then not only that person, but everybody. It seemed like everybody was like, had like a demon or something. It was very, that's why when they came out with that demon face thing, I was like, don't even try to add anything else. I cannot take anymore. Child, now not the demon face, girl. But yeah, so that started my research. And I became very knowledgeable. It only made me aware. It didn't really, I just had it. In one way, it was helpful because I felt like I had language and I had an understanding of what was happening, and why it was happening, in the sense of biologically. But spiritually, I couldn't reconcile why it was happening, because I was, excuse me, I consider myself a person of faith. And then when you witness a certain degree of darkness, it is a little jarring to the soul and to the mind, and on every level. And those that have seen it and experienced it know exactly what I'm referring to. When you've witnessed it, it is very alarming. And that's one aspect is very alarming, but it's also a shock to your mind and your soul. So with all of this going on, this is a very, spiritual thing as well. It's kind of, if you have faith, it can make you say to your faith, well, shouldn't you intervene? Dear God, please do something. This isn't right. It's me. Okay? I know you might be thinking that it's, you might be, you might think it's something else, but it's me. Like I'm the one I've been talking to you since I was a little girl, remember? We have always been there for each other, so do something. Do something, please, quickly. open the earth and swallow them. I've read you've done it before in the Bible, in the Old Testament. I read it. That's terrible, y'all. And but it's true. It's really, so that was the other effect, was the faith affecting the continuity of faith, because it was just so troubling that I just was like, the Lord has definitely left the building. And it's sad. I joke about it because I have to try not to laugh my way through it, but it really did feel like that. Like I had been left on scene by God. And so imagine that, compound that with all that you're going through. I wouldn't recommend trying to go through this at all, but to go through it without God, that was insanity and torture. What was my word for it? No, besides the hello darkness, my old friend. Besides that, it was anguish. That was the word, anguish. Feel your skin moving around. Can't sit still with it. Can't. But you have no choice. This went on for years. Years and years and years, if you can imagine. But at any rate, I was talking about that in reference to me being, motivated to move and to, continue to progress. So yeah, I didn't feel like I had boundaries at that point because they weren't being respected. I didn't feel like I can just say, okay, I'm safe here. No. So it was crazy because of the time of day that the person had came by. It was just kind of like, this is too far. It's like, this is enough. I've had enough, for real. I've dealt with this. I was like, no, something's got to be done. And I was so enmeshed in the thoughts and the feelings, so outdone with it all. I was just so trapped, mentally and spiritually trapped in this prism of what happened. It just replayed. It was constantly before my eyes. Look what happened. Don't let it happen again. Oops, it's happening again. Look what happened. All the time, day in, day out. And I just had so many problems as well, just left and right, Mainly because, again, I didn't have God. Or I had God, but I was almost like just separating from God. I felt separated from God, which led to other things as well, which I will get into, later on. But the motive, that was like the initial motivation for me to get out of the area that I was in and had been in for like 10 years. Same apartment. But that's how I did it. I just moved very silently and, secured a place. I had somewhat of an image in mind of what I wanted. I went and just started looking for places and eventually got one. I got assistance with the security deposit, and I started. They were doing, I think they were doing evictions or something. So they had like a trailer, a garbage dumpster out there. So I was just quietly throwing my stuff in there to, I know they was pissed. They was like, this is not for y'all. This is for the buildings that were emptying. But yeah, it was quietly, probably not that quiet because the person was kind of like, what's going on here? But I didn't say a word till I had escaped. So once I escaped that time, it still took some years to really get free. And it's like I kept wanting to know the truth or something. I was just really, really trapped in this terrible cycle. And even though I had moved away, I didn't move away. Because I brought me with me. I brought the trauma right along with me. The trauma responses, more importantly, because they were affecting how I interacted with the world. I mean, everyone in the world. Even myself. Like, even myself, I kind of viewed from a distance. Excuse me. Even myself, I viewed from a distance, and my chief complaint was, one of my chief complaints was, this doesn't feel real. I don't feel like I'm here. Da, da, da. And I mean, I know my therapist was like, girl, she say this every week. Girl, get you a new symptom, girl. I mean, that was just angst, anxiety, da da da. Anyway, so that promoted this one. I mean, that one. And then when I moved here, a lot of things were moving in a good way for me. I was feeling like I felt like things were moving forward for me in a good way. I finally had like a little income for myself, that was straight, where I wasn't really hand to mouth, I felt good. I was able to afford to fly down here to go to this conference. And the first time I flew down here, I just flew down here just to do something, because I initially wanted to go to Arizona. And that was when I was in a different mindset and I was under different beliefs. So I packed a little bag, like in January of that year. I packed a bag and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go one day. But I ended up saying, okay, I'll go to Texas. I don't even know what made me decide to come here instead of Arizona, but I had decided I'm not gonna go to Arizona. But since I had the bag packed already, on one Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe it was a Wednesday, I was like, I ordered me a flight, child. That's what I mean by having like a little bit of disposable change, honey, where I could just book me a flight, got me a little hotel. But my daughter wasn't having it, child. She was like, I said, okay, I'm about to go. She was like, where are you going? I was like, I had to tell her and stuff. She was like, I'm going too. So she bought her a ticket too. So we came down here and, I looked around. I looked at a couple of apartments. So it must have been already like in my mind, And also I had talked to one of my relatives and they said like, like they had moved away. They were like, this was the best thing I could have done. I said, really? I always wanted to do it. She was like, you should. It's the best thing. So I think from that point on, I was like, I gotta go, because the clock is ticking and the time is going by and nothing is changing. I need to do something. So once again, me plotting in stealth mode, because I still had some of those, I won't say all, some of those trauma responses and attitudes and behaviors. And but I can't say during that time, like I was saying, not only with income, but I started to feel a little bit. For one, I came back to God, to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Okay, first of all, that's really what the apex is. That's the start of it. That's how it was all possible for real. And so I was feeling like, I was feeling like symptoms weren't really in my way, I was like, maybe I am cured, honey. I think I might be finally free. Because, I had some moments over the years where I would say, it's not here. The thing is not here. I remember telling my therapist, I was like, I could just feel it come off of me. It's, if you know, you know. Is really all I could say, because I could try to explain it, but if you haven't seen it or experienced it, you probably would think it's a lot of tomfoolery or something. But it's very, very real. But I was just feeling so able, and I was starting to break down certain walls that had been up there, and just trying to come out of that old self, come out of that old shell. I just saw today evangelist. She's an evangelist, talking about how the lobster, every now and again, or a couple times out of their life, they have to come out of their shell so that they can grow. I said, wow, that's a bar. I said, okay, let me find out. She with the bars today. I like that. I said, that's true. But think about how vulnerable you are when you come out of that shell, right? But if you don't come out of it, if they don't come out of it, it will kill them, because they can't grow fully, like, with and on. So I haven't fact checked that, honestly. I'm just saying that was like the metaphor that she used. So I will look it up later and make sure it's the truth. But either way, it's still a good visual representation of life and growth. But yeah. So yeah, that's how it happened. So that's how I ended up here in Texas in this beautiful weather. So yeah, that one discussion about weather led me through my life story. That's wild. That's super wild. But I think it needed to be said, honestly. I need to get free and stay free. Maintain my freedom. I need some tools to maintain my freedom. I need some habits to maintain my freedom. And my freedom comes from the Lord. Because I don't know how else to make it plain. But yeah, I've got to maintain this freedom from... Oh, that was the other thing I was thinking about, like, because when I was saying about how I lost my faith, and one thing, so obviously the devil had to have a entry point. He had to have a door for him to get in. He couldn't instant transmission himself in my life. So there was a door opened, and once the door was opened, I couldn't manage all that came through the door. And what kept the door open was unforgiveness. Because again, I'm saved. Okay, yes, I made mistakes, and was, not like I can't really say I've just been so righteous that the God should just do me a solid. So off the rip, I don't know what made me think, but because of my past, I felt that I was doing, I was His, I was God's, so like, do something. The enemy is oppressing me, do something. Meanwhile, I ain't repented. I mean, all I did say was like, oh my God, Lord, please help, stop it, like, do something. It was terrible, y'all. It was really bad. Really bad. That's all I could really say, like, ouch, like, Lord, do something. Do something, Master, please. But then it was years of unforgiveness, because I I couldn't, again, I just could not reconcile God allowing it to happen. And then for the person just to be moseying around, just enjoying life after causing so much, that just that just made me so embittered and dark, honestly. But the darkness was oppressing me. The darkness was oppressing me. And I would say, because over the course of that time, I just became more and more of a recluse. More and more of a recluse, and then when I did interact with people, it would not go well. It would just be a misunderstanding, something like, and it'd be more like oppression. And I would say, as I would be going, like, oh, I have to go, or someone would ask where you been, like, oh, I've been home fighting demons, and I would say that, oh, I was fighting off my demons, oh, just fighting demons. I'm pretty sure the demons was looking at me and was like, who's she talking? Who is she talking about? Because she ain't even pinched. Did she pinch you? She ain't pinched me. Who is she fighting? I wasn't fighting them. They was just like giving me a 2-piece and no biscuit. It was giving me it was just piecing me up. I wasn't fighting them. I was recruiting more of them to help me fight them. Darkness against darkness. Okay. Yeah, you can imagine how that turned out. Awful. It yielded 0 results. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. 0 results. The results was more oppression, more bad news, bad energy, bad vibes, and more and more and more. Excuse me. And more and more and more. And it just kept piling on and happening. At some point, well, that would get me into another subject. But I guess that may be the next subject I'll get into. But at some point, I had to come to God and say, I'm sorry. And please help me. And I can't say like it was just something so simple and it was like, oh yeah, then everything was all better, and I just like skipped into the sunset with a basket of daisies. No, it was you gotta have an offering, I would say. That would be my advice whenever you're making a request, and that's like a whole nother situation that I would like to talk about and bring awareness to. Is just always seeing God for what He can do and what He does, and and not so much relationship and those kind of vibes, But I feel like I'm learning that, and it's just like a process. It's like, because we have been taught, or I don't know if everyone has, but I've just been taught to kind of, rely on God for things. And if you rely on Him for Him, you won't have need of these things because it will be provided. And it's something that you hear, but it's like something that is, challenging to learn, but I'm willing to learn. And I'm praising Him that I will learn it, Yeah, so and then I had to realize, like, me harboring that resentment. So I had unforgiveness for the person, but I also had unforgiveness towards God. So not that He was necessarily offended by my little unforgiveness, but I don't know what that is. But going to wrap this up because it seems like there's a lot going on out there. So my main thing to tell you is the shortcut to your healing and overcoming is forgiveness. I know it's really like, what? I remember hearing it before and I was just thinking like, okay, I forgive them. But no, really, like really forgive them. Forgive them like you want to be forgiven, for real. Just remember that you need to be forgiven also. So forgive like that. Forgive like that. It's like way better. And it just kind of helped. It just aided the oppression. It aided in the symptoms. It aided in the lack of clarity and healing. Because I was just, so focused on what was done, and what was wrong, and da. So once I got to that place, it was like it was a closure in a movement of, progress and hope. But it was just a stepping stool. It was just the start, just the beginning. Even after all those years of working in therapy, working with prescribers, and just with everything, it was almost reduced to nothing much because of the way the Lord moved when He moved in my life. It changed all of that. And so whenever I want to get embittered or down about it, I just thank Him for forgiving me, and it reminds me that I'm forgiven. So I'm the villain in somebody's story. And I like how the preacher says there's good in the worst of us and bad in the best of us. And I think that's a very humbling reminder. But anyway, I don't know what I was talking about today. Moving. Excuse me. I don't know what I was talking about. Moving. Faith. Or what? How does Molly Music say it? Faith, work, and action. Yes, like that. Not in a passive way. I don't know, guys. I think I'm gonna start to get into the whole just rambling at this point because there's so many thoughts. I'm trying to wrap this up in a nice little bow. That forgiveness is key. That's key in healing. I gave a little bit of my testimony of moving to Texas. I didn't really get into I started to tell you how the year was starting off pretty good, pretty decent. But I didn't tell you how the year ended. But I will get into that as well. So stay tuned for that. I just, I can't cram all of that in here. Especially when I don't even know how this audio is, how it's giving. But I did just want to start off with that. Be obedient. And take it out of my hands and put it in the Lord's hands. Let God have all of the glory. Let Him have all of the vengeance. And yes, let's keep it positive and move on. Okay? So again, thank you for stopping by. This has been Grace and Mercy. And have a blessed day.